Kelsey Mitchell has finally broken her silence. For years, she was the steady voice of the Indiana Fever, giving polished press answers, playing her role as the franchise cornerstone, and carrying a team that had been buried in a But this time, the mask slipped. The words weren't rehearsed. They weren't calculated soundbites crafted to appease reporters. They were raw, honest, and more powerful than anything she's ever said before. Because this wasn't just commentary. This was a truth bomb. For months, the conversation around Indiana has been consumed by one name, Caitlin Clark. Fans couldn't escape it. The media couldn't stop asking about it, and every teammate was expected to answer the same recycled questions. But when it was Kelsey Mitchell's turn, she didn't brush it off. She didn't sidestep it. She leaned in, stared it down, and delivered a statement so bold that it sent shockwaves through the WNBA. She didn't just call Clark talented. She didn't just acknowledge her impact. She said Caitlin Clark changed the world, changed the dynamic of basketball itself. Those words hit differently. They came from someone who knows the dark side of this league. Someone who has been in the trenches long before Clark's arrival lit the franchise on fire. And that's what makes Mitchell's voice matter more than anyone else's. Because let's be real, Kelsey Mitchell wasn't supposed to survive this long. She was drafted into dysfunction, handed the keys to a franchise that had already collapsed, and told to carry the weight of years of losing. She was the lone bright spot on rosters that opponents treated like practice squads, while other teams circled Fever games as easy wins. Mitchell was grinding out 20-point nights that nobody cared about. She endured coaching changes, roster overhauls, and constant media silence. At one point, the Fever only won 5 games in an entire season. 5. Most stars in her position would have asked out. They would have forced a trade, chased rings, or vanished into a But Mitchell stayed. She carried the franchise when nobody else wanted to. She was the generator keeping the lights on when Indiana basketball was left for dead. And after all those years of suffering, she's finally tasting the payoff. When Lexi Hull arrived, the Fever gained grit. When Aaliyah Boston arrived, they gained dominance. But when Caitlin Clark arrived, that's when the entire basketball world shifted. Suddenly, Indiana wasn't a punchline anymore. They weren't background noise. They were the headline. Primetime TV, sellout crowds, global coverage. The Fever became the center of the universe, and Kelsey Mitchell was still standing right there, no longer ignored, no longer forgotten. But finally, sharing the stage she kept alive for nearly a decade. And here's the wild part, she doesn't resent it. She could easily the spotlight that should have been hers years ago now belongs to Clark. The narrative, the attention, the endorsements, all of it could have sparked jealousy. But instead, Mitchell spoke from a place of respect, even admiration. She called Clark not just a teammate, but a friend. That single word carried more weight than any highlight. Because in professional sports, where egos and rivalries so often poison locker rooms, friend isn't a casual label. It's a declaration. A warning to the rest of the league that what Indiana is building isn't just talent, it's chemistry. It's unshakable loyalty. And loyalty wins championships. Mitchell's message was clear. Caitlin Clark hasn't just changed the Fever, she's changed basketball itself. And instead of resisting that, Mitchell has embraced it. That is what true leadership looks like. Because let's not forget, Kelsey Mitchell has her own flowers to collect. She's been one of the most consistent guards in the league for years, quietly putting up elite scoring numbers while carrying a franchise most players wouldn't touch. She was an MVP finalist this year, with some analysts even arguing she had the best season of any guard in the WNBA. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because Mitchell kept pushing, kept grinding, and refused to let Indiana sink completely. So when she says Clark has transformed the game, that isn't weakness. That isn't her surrendering the spotlight. That's her being strong enough to elevate another star without dimming her own shine. And that's what sets this apart from the rest of the league. Look around the WNBA. When Clark's name comes up, how many veterans react with snide remarks, bitterness, or shade? A'ja Wilson couldn't resist throwing digs. Cheryl Swoops openly downplayed her impact. The old guard has been busy trying to protect their turf instead of embracing the revolution. But Kelsey Mitchell, she's not bitter, she's not threatened, she's all in. She knows what Clark brings isn't a threat to her legacy, it's the missing piece to it. Because Mitchell's story is no longer about surviving losing seasons. It's about finally leading a dynasty. And make no mistake, that's what Indiana is building. The Fever's Fab Four, Mitchell, Clark, Boston, and Hull aren't just good. They're the blueprint. Mitchell's scoring, Clark's stardom, Boston's dominance in the paint, Hull's grit and shooting. It's everything you need to build a contender. Not just for 1 year, but for a decade. And Mitchell knows it. She even hinted she'd take a pay cut if it meant keeping this core together. Think about that. In an era where athletes chase the biggest contracts possible, Mitchell is willing to sacrifice her own earnings to keep this group intact. That's how much she believes in what they're building. Because for her, this isn't just about money or stats. It's about legacy. It's about finally seeing the franchise she bled for rise from the ashes and take its rightful place among the elite. And she knows that's only possible because of Caitlin Clark. But don't confuse that respect with passivity. Mitchell isn't handing over the keys. She's sharing them. She reminded everyone that before Clark, she was the one carrying this team through hell. She's not fading into the background. She's playing her most efficient basketball ever, hitting big shots in playoff games, and finally receiving national recognition she's always deserved. Clark didn't replace her. Clark amplified her, and together, they've become one of the most dangerous backcourts the league has ever seen, even off the court. The chemistry is undeniable. Take Clark's infamous fine tweet. When the league slapped her with a $200 penalty for stepping on the court, she joked about it on social media. Pundits twisted it into arrogance or immaturity. But inside the Fever locker room, it was comedy gold. Mitchell revealed the truth: Clark's humor and energy make the team tighter, not divide it. That's not arrogance. That's personality. That's chemistry. And that's exactly why this locker room works. The rest of the league should be terrified. Because what Indiana has isn't just talent, it's connection. Mitchell believes in it. Clark fuels it. Boston anchors it. Hull embodies it. Together, they've taken a franchise long mocked as irrelevant and turned it into must-see TV. And that's why Mitchell's words matter. She wasn't just praising Clark. She was declaring war on the old order of the WNBA. Her message was simple. You can't deny what's happening in Indiana. You can't downplay it, ignore it, or dismiss it. Because if this core stays intact, the league doesn't just have a new contender. It has a dynasty in the making. And that dynasty isn't built on jealousy, bitterness, or insecurity. It's built on respect, friendship, and unbreakable loyalty. Kelsey Mitchell proved that true leadership doesn't fear competition. It welcomes it, embraces it, and builds something greater because of it. So here's the bottom line. Kelsey Mitchell didn't just endorse Caitlin Clark. She validated her, she embraced her, and in doing so, she shifted the power dynamic of the WNBA. The Fever are no longer the league's doormat. They're the storm sweeping through it. And if the rest of the league isn't ready, they're about to be left behind watching history get rewritten in real time. Because Indiana isn't just a team anymore. They're a revolution. And it started the moment Kelsey Mitchell decided that Caitlin Clark wasn't competition, she was family.